Hello, this is Malorian, and this is the Orc Tactical Team. And what we'll be talking about today is vampire counts and their special characters. So we have all the ones from the last book. We have some new ones, which are really just really old ones. But let's get started. The first one they have is good old Vlad von Carstein. He's supposed to be there where he's your kind of survivable guy, but he doesn't really fit the role. Let's just kind of go over what he has. First of all, he's kind of neat where he has a lot of these little leadership tricks. So guys around you will be -1 leadership. You have Beguile, so that you'll also be taking a test at -3, and you get your advantages there. And then he also cause terror. So he has all that niceness about him. He has a Blood Drinker, which doesn't give him auto wounds like the old magical weapon does. It just makes it so that when you kill a guy, you get a wound back in a 4+ rather than a 5+. So really not that great. Probably the best thing about that is the fact it gives you +1 strength. Yeah. If Isabella gets killed, then he's going to be getting frenzy and hatred, but then you have to take Isabella, we'll be getting to her. And then his last things he has is the Carstein ring, where he gets a 4+ ward save, which is always great. But then he's going to be, if he ever gets killed on a 2+, he can come back to life and go to another unit. Now, most of his stuff you can go and relate to a vampire lord, and really in order to get the blood drinker ability and the Carstein ring, you're really paying 140 points for these. So is it really worth it? Really that whole hunger thing isn't very much. +1 strength is worth about 20 points to you, so you're really paying like 120 points for that 4+ ward, and it's just, yeah, it's. And that 2+, here's the thing about this. If you have a person or opponent that usually is going and killing your vampire lord and your general and causing trouble, you might want him as a good way where, okay, if you kill me, I'll be able to survive. The two bad things about this that's not such a big deal is, one, now crumbling isn't that big of a deal anyway. If you have another wizard, they can just stop the whole crumbling. So if you do lose your lord, then you can, it's not an auto lose, you can come back from it. The second part is that it almost makes you play more aggressively with him. You want to have him in the front ranks, you want him to be killing what he can, and when he dies, ha ha ha, I'm just going to go and teleport over here and I'm still all alive. The problem is that 1 in 6 games, you're going to lose him anyway, and you're going to be losing all these points. So overall, you're paying a lot for this extra bonus, which in the end can just be biting you in the butt. So I don't think he's worth it, but obviously if you're doing a theme force, he's not horrible, he's not bad, so he's in that not so good, but if you want to try him, you're not shooting yourself in the foot. Isabella von Carstein, on the other hand, completely useless. She's paying all these points to have this chalice so that at the start of every their magic phases, they get to heal somebody. Now, in the last book, you could kind of work in where sometimes it could help, where you could be getting this extra heal in. But now, with how your lore attribute is going to be healing people anyway, what's the big deal? It really doesn't help you whatsoever. I'd say a complete waste. I wouldn't be taking her. I'd rather be spending the points of getting multiple necromancers, so you could be getting, multiple heals, and then of course that lower attribute more times. If you're taking a fluffy army, then take her, but otherwise, don't bother. It's too bad that she's the one that they make a new model of. Alright, next up we have Mannfred. Now this guy has a ton of points, but actually when you start working it out, you're actually getting a pretty damn good deal for this. So, one of the things he is a level 4, he's a lore master for both vampire and death. One thing that's kind of funny is that before, death was a big bonus to get with him, whereas now it's like, oh, it's a vampire that can't get shadows. But he does have lore master, so he's going to have all of those spells to be picking from. It's pretty fantastic. He's going to be having the Dark Acolyte, the Master of Black Arts, Summon Creatures of the Night, and then he has his cool little sword of Unholy Power, which if you do a wound, you'll be getting extra power or dispel dice. And then he also has his whole fancy armor that gets him +2 wounds and a 5+ armor save. So when you start kind of pointing out the best you can, it does look like he's a pretty good deal. The one thing though is that he isn't fantastic. It's really only if you're trying to go this route where you're trying to get a guy with extra wounds and with lore master and all this other stuff. The Master of the Black Arts, that's a really expensive upgrade as well. that this would actually even be a thing where, okay, this is great, this is something that's just better to have. So he has a lot of points. Again, if you're wanting to try and go with a theme, he's a great thing to have. If you're really wanting to have this lore master, you only want to have one caster that wants to have access to a whole bunch of lores, he could be a great way of going as well. Of course, vampires are suffering in this new book with trying to get their power dice, so it'd be really nice to have him if you're going to have him up in front to try and be killing to get more dice. But then the problem with that is that he's probably going to end up getting killed if you're having too far up, because even though he has 5 wounds, you know, he doesn't have a ward save or anything like that, so he can die fairly easily if people concentrate him. And remember that even though he's probably going to be casting lots of magic, and if it's the lore of the vampires, he'll be healing himself, the problem is that you only get a magic phase every 2 combats. So it's pretty easy for this guy to end up in some pretty serious trouble. So a good deal if you decide to go more of this magic route. So an okay possibility. Then he also has his hero version, the Acolyte. Again, if you work out the points, he's actually pretty good for his points. He's getting more than what you're actually paying for. Really, when you kind of work it out, he's getting that sort of unholy power for free. But then again, he has pretty much no armor, no ward save. So if you have him in the front ranks to actually be using that sword, he's probably going to get killed. Because now in this version, he only has 2 wounds. It's going to be pretty easy to kill this guy. So if you are going to take one, it kind of makes more sense to take the Lord version. It is a real big, huge bite of points out of your list, but hey, you got that at least. And if you want to go with the hero, go ahead, but I would be very, very careful trying to go in the front ranks and trying to use that sword, because you're probably just going to end up dying. Now, Konrad in the last book, I absolutely hated. I thought he was retarded, never take him. I just hated the idea of him, and I hated the whole fact that you're going to be worrying about stupidity and frenzy all the time. Now, the changes in 8th edition, where now you can be re-rolling with a BSB and all this great stuff, really, it's a whole bunch of nothing. If you get stupidity half the time, it's just whatever, I'll pass it. And if you get frenzy, great. You know, you're not really ever going to get baited out. It's just going to be a fact that I get +1 attack. Awesome. It does really suck that you're going to be paying all these points and he's not even a level 1, so that's a little bit bad. But the one nice thing about him is he's one of the vampire's only way to get a multi-wound item in there. And the nice thing with him is that he has 4 attacks, 5 with frenzy, and he also has red fury. So after he does some wounds, he's going to get extra ones as well. So if you're a person that plays up against a lot of ogre kingdoms or something like that with lots of multi-wound guys, he could be a nice person to have in there. Of course, he's a good character killer as well. With initiative 6, he can be going fairly quickly. You can be using your vampire lores on his unit to make him basically always strikes first, and then he's pretty fantastic, you know, for a hero with weapon skill 7. He can be a pretty great character killer. So if that's the role you want to take him, fantastic. I know there's people out there that are going to try taking him as a general, and I just want to slap people like that, because they're really, I mean, they're playing for fun, but the guys that do that and say, no, this is tactical, this is my tournament army, just don't do that. He's a support character to try and be a character killer. That's what he really is. Moving on is my very favorite one of the whole book. Heinrich Kemmler, however you're supposed to say it. I'm sure there's some little accent you have to say whenever you say his name. He's really just a super lord necromancer. So he's a level 4. He's going to be your master of the dead, so you can raise skeletons larger than they're starting. The lore master, I think I said, he's going to be getting, you know, he gets a little bonus where he's going to get +2 attacks and stuff, but really don't expect this guy to be killing anything. The big thing, he's going to be getting +1 to his dispel, and his greatest thing he has is that he has this whole cloak that makes it so he either has fly or ethereal every single round. And so to me, this is a fantastic thing he can throw in there. There's so many different tactical options that it gives you. You know, if you're up against a steam tank, boom, he just runs out of the unit, he'll be ethereal, and that steam tank is doing nothing the entire game. And the whole time he still can be casting magic and all these great things. He's a caster that is just fine in your front ranks, because unless you run up against something magical, he just stands there and he's completely fine. And in the rare case that, when it does come up that you are going to be seeing some magic weapons and he's in trouble, boom, you just switch to fly and you get the hell out of town. So I just love this guy. He has a good amount of points, and everything's so different about him that it's hard to kind of really work out what you're paying for each different ability. But to me, if I was going to take one special character in the whole book, it would be this guy. So this is my A plus special character for vampire counts. Maybe just because I'm also like the whole idea of ethereal and how you can really be messing up a whole bunch of different things out there with that. Morphine Cav coming at you, gonna rip you up. Boom. He zips out there into them. They're completely useless. Alright, let's move on to Krell. So he has some kind of neat abilities, he has some kind of stupid abilities, and let's just kind of go over it. He's kind of like a super White King. He has an extra wound than what a normal one has, so that's pretty good. He's very survivable then. His big things is that he gets heroic killing blow whenever he is in a challenge, so he can get in there and boom, he can be killing huge mounts or all that great stuff. Even if, he always has killing blow, but now if you're fighting an ogre or something, you can be killing that ogre as well. He has this armor of barrows, which is basically a 4+ armor, and then if you ever make your armor save, it destroys whatever magic weapon you're hit by. But really, this one is completely useless because pretty much anything you see out there with a magical weapon will also have higher strength, so you're not going to be getting much of an armor save at all. So this is really something where I look at, like, if you make a 6+, you destroy the weapon. And meanwhile, he probably went and either killed this guy or did tons of damage to him, so he's going to die anyway. Magic weapon or not, a strength 5 ogre or whatever is still going to be finishing this guy off in the next round of combat. His other main thing he has, which is probably his best thing, is the fact that he has this great weapon, that Black Axe of Krell, which is a great weapon that does D3 multiple wounds, and also after this, it can kind of keep on doing more wounds so that you roll D6, and if the result is higher than the number of wounds remaining on this guy, and obviously if you hit him already, it has to be pretty low, he takes another wound. So really what that really does is that if you hit anything with multiple wounds, you can be pretty safe knowing that you're going to be doing about 4.5 wounds to it. They're your initial big one when you hit, and let's get into this part now. It's really hard working out the math for this guy, and it looks like having this ability, this magical weapon, is pretty good. The problem is that he only has 3 attacks and weapon skill 5. And so whereas I was talking about using Konrad as a character killer, this guy with his only weapon skill 5 is probably only hitting on a 4+, so you're only going to be hitting with 1 or 2 of those hits. Strength 6 only even with the great weapon, so you're probably wounding on a 3+ on most of the main characters you're going after, so now you're looking at probably less than 1, and then they might have a ward or something, so you're probably not going to be doing much of anything at all. And even if you do the D3 wounds, do 2, and then hope that he'll fail the next one and die the next time. And that's assuming that this guy just doesn't get owned beforehand. So he kind of works as an okay character killer, and really for the whole thing of him dying, he has toughness 5, 4 wounds, but it looks like one of these guys where he's going to need to have 2 or 3 rounds of combat in order to kill something, and so you're really trying to hope for that one really lucky hit to either try getting the killing blow or to get lucky the other way and rolling high for your multiple wounds, assuming that you hit anyway. So he's kind of neat, but if you really want a character killer, I'd be going with Konrad. He'd be the one that I'd be going with. And that's really it for special characters. So really, if I was going to be rating the usefulness of these guys, first I would take Kemmler. He's my very favorite. If I was to take a second one, it would be Konrad. After that, Mannfred von Carstein is a pretty good deal for your points. Next, I'd be taking Vlad. I think he's pretty cool. After that, Krell. Then I go down to Mannfred, and then Isabella is dead last. And I'm talking about like way dead last. I'm not a fan of her whatsoever. So there you have it, special characters. Of course, there's always the side of special characters that if you just like their fluff, go ahead and use them. But yeah, there you go, and hope you liked it. Thanks for watching. Bye.